Corey White is the CEO of Cyvatar. He is an AI enthusiast. He is a cybersecurity innovator. He is a keynote speaker. Welcome back to the show, Corey.
Well, George, thanks for having me back. It's always exciting to chat with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on. Refresh our memory. Tell us a little about your personal lives, more about your work, why you're doing what it is that you are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I always talk about when people think about, personal life or business is people think, well, this is work Corey or this is home Corey. I found it easier, and I think everyone will agree. And once you have a little bit of life experience, I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't want to have a work Corey and a home Corey. I just want to have Corey, okay? And of course, there's some things that you don't do at work, but still in general you should be the same person. And that's why it's all, cliche now where everybody talks about authenticity. But authenticity is a thing, but it also, if from an individual perspective, it makes life so much easier. Because if I know I got to go to work and pretend to be this one person, then when I'm at home, I can be, a relaxed person, or some people, frankly, probably pretend with their families too. But I just try not to pretend. And it's, love me or hate me, that, I'm consistently Corey White. And so that's how I think about work and personal.
Well, I think that's a good thing. It is easier just to show up as yourself wherever it is that yourself happens to be. So
Yeah, exactly.
do you think that the people are just that we're conditioned to, oh, I'm now at work. I'm a professional now. I need to act in this way, and I certainly can't be casual with my language. Do you think that that's what it is, or it's probably a million things?
No, I've actually thought a lot about it, right? Being an executive and running teams, one of the things even back 10 years ago, my team is a company called Silence. I was an executive and ran a pretty large team. And I would tell my team, I want you to be 100% of who you are, unless you're an asshole. You're an asshole, don't be that person, right? And you're probably not a fit for our organization. But otherwise, just be you. I don't want you to pretend around me like, oh, Corey White, the VP or senior VP or whatever is here. I gotta act a little differently. No, just be you. I don't want you to have to pretend because I'm not gonna pretend. So I don't want you pretending. And so unfortunately, there are a lot of places that many of us have worked where if you don't dress a certain way or act a certain way around your bosses, then you're not in their little crowd. And that's unfortunate. And I think it's very hard for many people to be, accepted into those groups. But what I've realized about me is I'm a little different, but I think everybody's different. And so if you spend your time trying to blend in, I literally was actually made myself sick trying to blend into it. And one of the big revelations I think we all had during the pandemic is we were able to be our real true selves because many of us had to work at home. And then, we have kids or whatever. And I never forget my daughters, I have twin daughters, like they would just come and stand in the Zoom and just watch and look. And I'm like, hey, here's my daughter. And sometimes they say something, sometimes they wouldn't. And I noticed other people would have that same situation, or one of the funny things that always happened to me is I'm horrible at getting the trash out on time. So I'm literally on calls and I'm working from home. I hear the trash truck out there. I'm running out to pull the trash cans out in time because they never come at the same time every day, right? Sometimes it's 8 a.m., other times it's like 2 p.m. And like, what? So anyway, that's what's great about what's happening now in the business world. We have the ability to be our authentic selves.
Yeah, yeah. It's a really constructive way to think about, coming out of the pandemic and everything else is that, yeah, this is the opportunity to, because nobody cares. Nobody, if you're on a Zoom call, I don't care what kind of pants you're wearing, your kids are in the frame, you got your dog or whatever. So I think that that's good advice. You've been, at least my perception is that you've been thinking about working on artificial intelligence for way longer than most of us have now been thinking about it, because now it seems to be pretty much ubiquitous and we're all aware that it's an important thing. I don't know that any of us except for maybe you and people who are inside the industry, know what kind of an impact it's really going to have, other than it's going to impact things. So, where 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 are you at? If that's even a question you can answer when it comes to artificial intelligence, what are you excited about? What's kind of new?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many areas. First and foremost, there's a fantastic book. I read a lot and I give credit to, books that have helped me. But it's a book, called AI Leadership. And what's great about this book is, when as a CEO of my own company, I'm not sitting here saying AI can run the company and make decisions for us, and I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, to have a thought co-pilot, to have a AI advisor right there next to me has been invaluable. And learning how to be a very good prompt engineer and asking the right questions is a absolute critical skill set for any founder, and frankly anyone in leadership, and then ultimately anyone in your company. Because right now, we've got, about 20 employees, today, but at one point we had almost 40. And with AI, those 20, should be able to do the work of 60. Okay? Because the amount of time it takes to get things done, build out, strategies, at least for me, the things that I literally have to think about, and then even just editing of files and wordsmithing, the fact that we don't have to edit anything anymore, that to me is a game changer, because going back and having to read everything, that took forever. So my point here is, everyone needs to be using AI in their business, right? And if you're not, you will be left behind, because it's moving so fast. And I do a lot of mentoring for startups and the younger entrepreneurs. I was talking to a group a few weeks ago, and I asked, how fast does technology change? And this is one of the topics I used to bring up when I was doing, I still do a lot of public speaking, but I was speaking about 10 years ago. It was one of my slides. How fast does technology move? We've got the old school, Moore's law, technology doubles every 2 years, but in 2016-ish, I would ask, and people were like, oh, it changes about 12 to 18 months. That was kind of what the consensus was. But then I asked, what is it now? And I had to frame it in the sense of, how often does a new AI model come out? It used to be, I think, around every 6 months. Then it went to around 3 months. And I want to say it's around every 30 to 45 days, some new AI model is coming out. So technology is getting that much faster. So if you think that technology is accelerating every 30 to 45 days, what are you doing in your business? Are you accelerating your business, that fast to keep up with AI? Because otherwise you're behind. So those are some of the things I think about. But the last thing I point on AI that I think we really got to look at here is, where are we in the next year? Where are we in the next 3 years? Where are we in the next 5 years? And where is your business along those same kind of metric points? Because in a year from now, a lot of companies could be obsolete. 3 years now, they could be obsolete. So what are you doing to make sure what you're executing on today is still needed in the next 1, 3, 5 years?
Well, that's certainly a lot to chew on for people. And to your point, one that you must start chewing on, even if you haven't started at all. What would be the entry point for people that it's like, oh, you know what? Everybody keeps saying that, and maybe it's time for me to actually do it. But what does that mean? How do I start utilizing AI in my business?
Yeah, I think a few pieces. You got to start just playing with it. I think most people in business, like, let me use AI to rewrite this email. But one of the points, I'm looking at the post-it right now on my monitor in front of me. How can AI help me do this? Because we got to think, for me personally, I've been in technology for 30 years. And for the last, say 28 of them, mine's the last couple of years when AI came out, I've been doing everything without AI. So how can AI help me do whatever task I have in front of me? And so and I think a core piece that we all have to think about, because when you think about, paradigm shifts, and we all think about our parents, like when they get stuck, like literally, my wife was talking about her aunt that got a laptop. It was a while ago, but the laptop literally rode in the back of her car for forever. She never opened it. She was a school teacher in Louisiana, but that laptop rode around in the back of her car. She never used it. And so what is our laptop point, right? Where do we get that piece of technology and we decide, I'm done. I'm not adopting this. I'm not picking this up. What is that wall that we hit? I contest that we should never hit a wall. And the reason behind that is, if you guys, know who Dr. Joe Dispenza is, when I was 34 years old, this is 15 years ago, and this will give you guys kind of a bit of a time warp. But now you can go to YouTube and hear him stream and talk about everything today. But about 15 years ago, well, maybe it was a bit longer. I think it was like 2007-ish. Yeah, time flies. So I actually had to go to Amazon and buy a CD of one of his talks. And so I got the CD and I listened to it, and that's how I listened to the CD/DVD of his talk. And one of the things he said was the average person stops growing new synaptic pathways at the age of 35.
Hmm.
So what that means is when you get, 35, say 40 or whatever, you go on vacation, you take the same type of vacation. You're like, I like the beach. I like going where it's warm, or I like going skiing. Or when you go out and have a drink, you're like, well, I only like red wine. I only like this type, right? You get locked into the same thing over and over and over again. And so you're not learning, you're not growing new synaptic pathways. And that's the same thing with AI. So if you're like, hey, I've been doing this manually, and joking because my wife was mentioning this, I've been doing this manually in WordPerfect, Lotus 1, 2, 3. Most people don't know what that is. But you're still there in 1998. You got Microsoft Word, you got Google Docs, you got now you can have AI write the doc out for you, and you don't even need some of these tools. So it just, where did you stop evolving? And the point I'm making here is that you can't. Because at that point, you die because you stop growing new synaptic pathways in your brain.
I think that that's well said. We're gonna bring that. We're gonna bring that little paper clip back that showed up in Word Perfect. Was that Word Perfect? You remember?
Use word perfect. Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of that AI co-pilot that you were talking with, just way talking about just way ahead of the curve. So, all
Yep.
right. So from a consumer standpoint, I th well, maybe you're the person you told the story about whose laptop is in the back seat of their car. For the rest of us, we're pretty present online, and we're very comfortable entering our personal information into the internet. And then I hear about quantum computers that can break any code in 1 second. So I felt like, okay, great. So all my information is going to be easily available to anybody who wants it, and they probably already know my passwords. But I I don't know the right question to ask other than how do I coexist in this new world?
Wow. I love this topic. It's you said it's a new world, but we got to realize that it is 1000% a totally different world, because the controls that we thought we had in place as relates to cybersecurity, and I educate people a lot on this. The dark web, your social security number, your date of birth, your previous addresses, all that information, your passwords, all the information has been compromised previously. And so it's in a database in the dark web. The hackers are actually pretty smart. Now they have AI where they can query that database and run a tool against, and like, I want to launch an attack against George, and it has all the details to build a targeted attack. One of the things I tell people all the time, a spear phishing attack is when it's a targeted attack. But now every attack is a spear phishing attack. Okay. And you brought up one of my favorite subjects that just fascinates the hell out of me, quantum physics. And when you think about quantum computers, just how you correlate the two. When you think about what quantum physics is really the fact that our consciousness influences what actually happens. And now that's scientifically proven, and everything exists in a state of possibility. Okay. And so when you think about what a quantum computer is doing at its simplest state, old school computers, funny to say old school computers, are using zeros and ones. It's either a zero or one, that's it. But in a quantum world, then it could be a zero, it could be a one, it could be a zero and a one, it could be a one and a zero. It can be all these different things. So when you run a quantum computer again, against a problem set, then you can get a whole nother set of answers because there's no absolute zero or one. It's always like when people's like, it's no black or white, it's a gray area. Well, that's what it actually is. Because when you think about your consciousness and what you create and my consciousness and what I create, we create two different things. Okay. And quantum physics and quantum computers are now taking that into account. And that's why when you think about an attack scenario using a quantum computer, then the possibilities are infinite. That they can generate. So it's a whole nother level that we're dealing with. But our science and our computers are finally catching up to the way, we're getting away from that Newtonian kind of, science and getting into quantum science and physics. So it's a different world altogether.
Hmm. So you've got lots of black hats out there, and then we have white hats like your company,
Hmm.
and I guess I, the consumer, am sort of in the middle. Do we just trust that? Well, I don't have any other option. I have to trust that the protocols that I have in place to protect myself are going to be good, or what's the proper way for a consumer or a company to be thinking about this?
Yeah, that's a great question and segue here. So here's the challenge. You've got quantum, you've got AI. Okay, now those are here now. But before those things ever came out, most companies didn't have the proper tools, capabilities, anything preventative in place at all. So they may still be using legacy antivirus or may not have antivirus at all. They still may not be applying patches to their system. They may not be using multi-factor authentication. They're not blocking email phishing attacks. They haven't set up their DNS security properly. And I'm sure I'm missing. They haven't set up browser security to block them from going to malicious fake sites. These are all table stakes. So you lay a foundation and put those things in place, you absolutely can stop business email compromise, financial fraud, and theft. You could also stop ransomware attacks. And our customers have those controls in place. So I did some analysis, and this fascinates me that in the last 6 months across our customer base, we had 195 ransomware detections. And we also had 195 ransomware preventions, meaning zero of them executed. Now, you get a little bit deeper into the numbers here. 30 of those ransomware pieces of malware were detected just sitting on the file system, meaning we brought in a new customer, we run a full disk scan, we found ransomware and we blocked it. It was just sitting there, hadn't executed. 165 of them were blocked by policy, meaning someone clicked on a link or clicked on an attachment in an email, but they did some action for it to immediately scan it before that file executed, realized it was ransomware, and stopped it from executing. So without a lockdown preventative solution on the endpoint that's leveraging AI, potentially 165 of those would have executed. Okay. Now let's couple this with a really good stat I was hearing from one of the leading, security awareness companies out there. And they were so excited that they were able to get, the average customer from, 30% of the company would click down to 3. So that means 3%, regardless, are going to click on links and a phishing email. And so when we talk about security awareness training, yes, piece to the puzzle. But what happens after the click? The click turns into that 195, that have clicked on, those ransomware. They didn't know what it was. Now, if we're using spear phishing attacks and have all this information, quantum and AI, and all your passwords and date of birth, now we can launch an attack against you, and 3% are going to click. That means the hackers are going to win. They just got to be persistent. And most companies don't have the tools and solutions in place to stop these attacks. So we have to level up really quickly. It's the equivalent of saying, all right, I bought a new house. I put all kinds of cool stuff. My family lives in my house. But today I'm not locking my doors, but starting tomorrow, I'm locking my door. Every time I leave, I'm closing and locking my door and shutting my windows. That's the equivalent of what we have to do for our companies. But if you don't patch, if you don't have endpoint protection, if you don't have multi-factor, etc., you're the equivalent of having your doors wide open and windows open. You have nothing. You will get compromised in that state. So we have to catch up.
So it sounds like if you're doing a lot of the table stakes, a lot of the risk is going to be the simple human error of making a bad decision to click on something.
Well, I mean, there's a great stat out there. 98% of all cyber attacks are preventable, meaning you didn't have a control in place. You clicked on the wrong thing and you didn't have controls after the click, right? So if you have the right things in place, you most likely will not get hacked. I mean, I have 24 years of incident response experience. The majority of those hacks were something that the company, the user didn't do to properly secure themselves. So the other 2% are what we call nation state threat actor attacks. They're sophisticated, attacks. These people will not stop until they get in. Okay. It's by any means necessary. So ideally, you'll catch it after the fact or have some detection afterwards, but those are very hard to ultimately prevent. That's just like someone saying they're going to break into your house, even that means they got to break the glass. They're getting in regardless. It's sometimes there's no stopping, but that's only 2% of the attacks. And if you have proper controls in place, you may be able to stop it before something bad actually happens. They may break the glass and get in, but not steal the jewels. So there are extra controls you can have in place to stop the next action.
I think that for me inspires confidence that I know that if I'm doing the things that are recommended, then I'm reducing the possibility of a major loss of some kind, so long as I'm training my people on, like, yes, we have these tools, but that doesn't mean that you don't have some responsibility in how you're interacting online.
Yeah, I'll say real quick analogy just to think about what you just said. If I leave my windows down and my door open and put my wallet on my front seat of my car, and then I go and say, George, somebody stole my wallet. And you're like, oh man, how did it happen? Well, I left my doors open and windows down, my wallet was on the front seat. Then you're like, well, of course. So when your company, if you don't patch or have multi-factor, have no cybersecurity, and someone hacks in and drops ransomware on you, and then you say, God, someone ransomware my company. Same scenario.
So I shouldn't leave my windows open and my wallet on my seat. Got it. Okay. So how often are you auditing? Well, I guess probably every new engagement you have, it starts with let's see what you currently have and then see about improving it versus people don't have anything set up.
I was actually blown away when I started this business. Most companies don't have anything set up, or they may have one thing, but they don't have all of it. It's like saying again, a simple car analogy. It's like, hey, I closed my door, but my window's still down. You know what I mean? You got to close your door, windows up. lock it. And that's equivalent multi-factor patching, endpoint protection. I mean, basic things. You can't just say, oh, we got multi-factor on some of our systems and some of our applications in the cloud, but not all of them. Okay, that's your window's still down, basically. And I think people are missing that. They think that they do one thing and then it works out. That's not reality in cybersecurity. Now, if I'm using an AI tool to look and scan the whole parking lot and automatically figure out which one has windows down, and then I programmatically go and reach in the front seat and take the wallet out. I mean, that's what's happening. It's not hard. Hackers are using AI today, and most companies have nothing. And if they do have something, they're not using AI powered tools. And so the gap is just bigger.
Thank God you're here, Corey.
Yeah, and one last point, one point to your previous question. We don't charge to assess you to do a gap analysis. I think that's ridiculous. If again, I can look at the parking lot and see which cars, I'm looking at the parking lot now outside my window, see which cars have their windows down. I'm not gonna charge you to tell you you have a window down because you already know you don't have multi-factor in place. You already know that you aren't applying any patches. You already know you don't have any antivirus and that you have any capability of blocking ransomware. I can ask you that question or fill out a questionnaire in our platform automatically. It'll do the gap analysis for free. We are focused, laser focused on implementing solutions, maintaining solutions that keep you locked down and secure. That's what you need to pay for. You should never pay for these gap analysis, especially when you have limited to nothing in place.
There it is. Well, Corey, thank you so much for coming back on. Where can people learn more? How can they engage with you? And if we have a business owner who is listening that says, you know what? It's probably time that I check this out to make sure that my windows aren't open. How can they have that conversation?
Yeah, 100%. You reach out to us at Cyvatar.AI, CYV as in Victor, ATAR.ai. You can sign up for free, get your free gap analysis there. You get your security policies, your external scans, and your external risk exposure using MasterCard's Risk Recon solution. All that's for free. Then when you're ready, you can reach out to us for a consultation within our platform, or you can buy right there within our platform. And this month only, since we're going through the March Madness, we have a first month free off of all subscriptions. So use the code CyberDunk25, and when you buy via e-commerce, or you can tell us that you want to use your code, and you get your first month free off of your subscription. So that is the easy way, the easy button to secure your organization.
Love it. Well, if you enjoyed as much as I did, show Corey your appreciation. Share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. Go to Cyvatar.ai, Cyvatar.ai, and take advantage of the free gap analysis and the risk exposure and all the other things that Corey was talking about just a minute ago. And enter code CyberdUnc25 for a month free on the services. And if you are just somebody who's trying to get your arms around AI, take Corey's advice and just get started using it. So, thanks again, Corey.
Thank you, George. Always a pleasure.
Until next time, remember, do your part by doing your best.